Hi everybody, it's Kelly. Today is June 26th, 2026, and I thought I would just tell you a story I don't think that I've shared before, that the earthquakes in Venezuela has kind of triggered in me. Many of you know that our family, we were missionaries in Venezuela for about 17 years. And during that time, in 1999, there was a huge flood. It's called the Vargas Flood, where it rained for days and days and days. There were over 36 inches of rain just in a few days in December. And because of that, there were huge mudslides that actually knocked out entire cities, including the one that right now, Catia La Mar, and down by the airport, is the same exact area that was affected at that time and now has almost complete devastation. Hundreds of buildings have collapsed, and they're trying to get people out. But during that time, my family was flying in for Christmas. It was December, and I had taken off in a van to pick up my sister, her girls, my dad, his wife at the time, pick them up to the airport, and bring them back up the hill back into Guatire where we lived. Well, while I was driving down, I didn't know, but they shut down the roads behind me because there were so much flooding that the mountains literally fell. I mean, there were huge mudslides. And Catia La Mar, which is the city right next to the Maiquetía airport, was inundated. There were homes that were just filled with mud, and lots of loss of life. About 30,000, they estimated about 30,000 people died during the Vargas floods. And it was very similar to what's going on now, where they were trying to dig people out of their homes, and there was a lot of people who had disappeared. They didn't know, where their family members were. Children were being abducted. Looting was going on, which I saw today online. Just when in these devastating times when there's so much loss and people are losing their homes, evil sets forth and people start stealing things and breaking into homes, and it's just chaos. And what people don't realize is, there was, when we went through this, I got stuck at the airport for 3 days. Long story short, my family flew in. We couldn't get out. We were not, the roads were shut down. We had no way to leave, and the floods rose so that a lot of the roads were covered with water. We couldn't even get out. So we chose to stay in the airport, feeling like if we were in the airport, at least we were in a safe spot. It still was open. People had tents that they were putting up in the airport. They were bringing the bodies in and keeping them at the airport in the basement. But after 3 days, I was a bit desperate. I had my family there. They didn't know what was going on. And people don't realize the water's cut off. You don't have access to gas. You don't have access to medicines. I remember seeing a gal that obviously was dependent on her psychiatric medicines and hadn't taken them for a few days and was just, having a really hard time out in the streets. And I saw something like that again today with on the street. Somebody was carrying a gun around and acting like a crazy person today when I saw in the videos. But a lot of people died, and those of us, I would never know how hard that is if I hadn't gone through it. If I hadn't been with my family and watched what happened. People that were in our Bible study, for example, had family members that they either lost or had to go through. I remember one little gal, she was not even 15, was in our Bible study, had to climb over fences through the mud to get to a higher place. Just a traumatic experience. And we talked about that afterwards for a long time. But lots of people passed away. And then the other thing is that we don't think about is it's going to go away in the news in a few days, but it's not going to go away for these people. And it took years to rebuild Catia La Mar. I remember going through a year later with my friend Lois, missionary friend Lois, and just wept because it was still so devastated. And even a year later, they weren't able to rebuild. So if you're, first of all, I would just say, pray for the people. it's a time of grief and it's a time of chaos. And then if you are donating, it's going to help, whether it helps somebody now in the rescue part or it helps afterwards in the rebuilding. All of that is necessary. The only thing, that I would encourage you to do is just to make sure that what you're donating to is a reputable organization. And there's quite a few out there that I'm seeing already with the earthquakes. But I just wanted to share that because not everybody has that experience of going through, a traumatic catastrophe, and we don't always understand how much continual loss is going to be happening over, the next years, really. And I'm grateful I'm seeing a lot of countries, including our own, step up and send aid. It's hard to see the people. We live in an age now where anybody can, film something and you can see it all over right now in the internet and TikTok and Facebook. And it's overwhelming to see people that have lost their families and have not even been able to find them yet under the rubble. So I just would encourage you to pray for them. I think there's more power in prayer than even our money, but if we can donate, that is good too. And I just would encourage you to. This to me is always a reminder of how weak, we are not powerful. We are not over the weather. We're not over. The hand of God controls everything, and bad things are allowed to happen, but we can still trust him through the process and trust that whether he ushers us into heaven through an experience like this, or ushers our family into heaven, or if he allows us to live through it and continue on, he can still use that experience in our own lives. I hope, I don't even know really why I'm sharing this, just because it was such a huge experience for me and for my family and for a couple of our boys. To end the story, we were there for 3 days in the airport, and we finally decided we were going to get in the van and start driving up and see what happens. And the military at that time was out, so they were the ones blocking the roads. We picked up a few people along the way and brought them in the van with us, and were able to make it up to Caracas. And then we were part of our church, our ministry was part of rebuilding specific areas. And receiving donations and helping afterwards. So I hope that you can join hands with somebody that is doing that for Venezuelans. And in the meantime, pray. When you see things on the news and you see the videos and things like that, just really pray that God would bring comfort and bring wisdom and bring the right people to help and support the people of Venezuela as they're going through this. So thanks for listening. It's just one story out of a million, and it's nothing compared to what the folks are going through there in Venezuela right now. But I feel for it. Love you guys, and just praying that that God would move in a mighty way to save, for miracles still to happen, and then for the rebuilding afterwards. Love you guys.